Hi, my name is Steve Harton, and welcome to Wyoming Family Law Show. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what it takes to get married in Wyoming. Under Wyoming Statute 20-1-101, it states that Wyoming marriage is a civil contract between a male and a female person to which the consent of the parties capable of contracting is essential. So even though it says, the statute still says it's a contract between a male and a female, in Wyoming you can get married if you're a same-sex couple. That happened in October of 2014 when basically the appeals court ruled Wyoming's same-sex marriage ban unconstitutional, and then the state of Wyoming chose not to appeal that. So anyway, it's a civil contract between basically two persons who can consent to the marriage. All right. So one of the main requirements of a marriage is that the parties must be at least 16 years of age, with of course a couple of exceptions. So if a person is under the 16 years of age, they can get married if a judge gives consent to the marriage. So you can petition to the court, and if the judge says it's okay, then you can get married even if you're less than 16 years old. However, if you are a minor, that means under 18 years old. If you're under 18 years old, you still have to get the consent of your parents, your mother or father, or your legal guardian in order to get married if you are under 18 years of age. All right. So, however, before you solemnize the marriage, you also must get a marriage license. And you get the marriage license from the county clerk in each Wyoming county. One of the parties can apply for the marriage license. They just go down to the courthouse and they fill out papers. The clerk makes sure that you are all over the age of 18, or if you're under the age of 18, that there's consent has been given. They're going to check to make sure that you have valid social security numbers, that you, I guess, ascertain your residence and get a bunch of other information from you, like your, parents' names and their places of birth and where you were born and things like that. So once you get the marriage license from the county clerk, then that license is valid for 1 year. And this expiration date on the license is listed on the marriage certificate. And if you don't solemnize the marriage within that 1 year time period, then the license expires and you have to go through this thing again. All right. So anyway, this next part of the statute talks about the judge can order the county clerk to issue the marriage license if, for instance, the people that want to get married are less than 16 years old. Then their parents have to ask the judge, and anyway, the judge can order that marriage. All right. So in order to actually create the marriage, though, you have to solemnize it, and what that means is that you have to have some sort of ceremony. Okay, so there's the Wyoming statute prescribes who may solemnize the marriage, and so there's a whole list of them, like every district or circuit court judge, district court commissioner, Supreme Court justice, magistrate, and every licensed or ordained minister of the gospel, a bishop, priest, or rabbi, or other qualified person acting in accordance with the traditions or rites for the solemnization of marriage of any religion. Any of those kind of people can perform the marriage. So oftentimes you can get a judge to do it, or there are certain commissioners in each county. Those are like court commissioners. They're people who sit in for the judges in their absence, and they are also allowed to do that. There's a number of them that perform marriages in each county, and you can call the county clerk and they can tell you who those people are. Or of course anybody who is minister or licensed or ordained minister of any religion. Okay, so the solemnization, in other words, a ceremony doesn't have to have any particular format, except that the parties have to declare solemnly in the presence of the person performing the ceremony and at least 2 attending witnesses that they take each other as husband and wife. So that means you have to do it in the presence of each other, but I guess you could perhaps do it by video or something like that. But basically it means that you guys all have to be kind of like live together. All right. So after the marriage is solemnized, then the person performing the ceremony will give one of the parties a certificate which he or she has signed, and the witnesses have also signed. And then they also specify the names, ages, and places of residence of the parties that were married, the names of the 2 witnesses who were present at the marriage, and the time and place of the wedding. So they actually have to enter what time the ceremony was. So anyway, once that certificate is given to one of the parties by the officiant, then that person needs to take it down to the county clerk's office so that it's actually recorded in the marriage books. It's actually quite important that that be done, because if that's not done, there's no record of the marriage, and it could raise a problem later. For instance, I had a case a number of years ago where a person was trying to apply for Social Security benefits, and they were needed the marriage certificate in order to get their deceased spouse's Social Security benefits, and unfortunately they never recorded it was performed by a religious person, and I'm sure they gave them the certificate, but it was never taken to the county clerks. So this was like, about 35 years ago. So what we had to do is actually file an action in court to ratify the marriage. And once that action was filed and the judge granted the ratification of the marriage, then the person could get the Social Security benefits. So it's always important to actually record or take the marriage certificate to the county clerk so it can be recorded in the marriage records. All right. So there's believe it or not, there's actually a couple of, there's actually a criminal statute involved with marriages, and that's if the county clerk refuses to, if the county clerk neglects to record the marriage certificate, or if the person who performs the marriage ceremony knows that they are not legally authorized to do so, or if they know that there's a legal impediment to the marriage, then those people or that person is guilty of a misdemeanor and punishable by a $500 fine and up to 1 year in jail. So you can't just have some person goofing around and pretending to marry people or sign marriage certificates and things like that if they're not really legally authorized to do so, because they can actually go to jail for that. However, if somebody does do that and they are not actually authorized to perform the marriage, the people who are getting married who actually think that the person is authorized to perform the marriage, and if they act like it and they think that they are getting married, then that marriage itself is still valid, even if the person was not authorized to perform the solemnization. So, all right, and then finally, marriage ceremony. Any religious society or religious assembly may perform the ceremony of marriage in this state according to their customs of their society or assembly. So, in other words, anybody who belongs to some religious society, it can be any kind of religion, it doesn't have to be one of the ones that we hear about all the time, but if they keep it in their records and do things like that, and if they have like records of marriages that they performed and things like that, they can take those records and transmit it to the county clerk to get a certificate of marriage for that thing as well. So, and then lastly, if you get married in some foreign country, say Mexico or Canada or in the Caribbean or whatever, the state of Wyoming will recognize that marriage. So if you go down and partying down in Cabo and get married, it's a real marriage here too. All right, so those are the things I think it's important to know how you get hitched in Wyoming, and so hopefully you find that helpful. If you'd like to know more information about this, please contact me at 307-382-5545. Thank you.